And we're live.
Catholic Answers Live, Supershow. This is how Edgar does an imitation of me. He talks like that. Welcome back. Wait, this is my imitation of you imitating me. Welcome back, Catholic Answers Live. Delightful to be here with you. That's what you always say.
No.
Delightful.
It's delighted to be here.
Oh, delighted to
Welcome
be
back, Catholic Answers Live. Delighted to be here. I am Kellet, your host.
Is his imitation of me better than my imitation of him imitating me, or what you get to?
Yeah, they're all good.
Oh, you liar! You filthy liar! I am Kellet, Edgar Lujano.
That's right.
Assistant host.
Yes.
And of course, Jeff Cam, Mr. Anderson.
Jeff Cam, not wearing a sweater.
Why does he usually wear a sweater? Is that a thing?
That's the trope online, I guess.
People talk about your sweaters.
And you know the kicker of it
There's
is
a whole subreddit to this. Yeah.
he's from like the coldest place out of all of us, and here we are in San Diego, and he's wearing a sweater.
It's because when it gets hot outside, they turn the AC on, and the vent hits me. So
It's
I keep a
crazy.
sweater
Some
in my
parts
office.
of this building are crazy cold.
Mm-hmm.
Edgar, you came up with the story this time. This is your baby.
It's my baby.
We try to comment on what's going on in the world on the Super Show from a Catholic perspective, of course, and you came up with the story. Go ahead, give it to
did.
us.
So-
and you found a new one. You found a nice, fresh, brand new news story.
It's so new. It was new in 2016. That's how new it is. So there's a website that has a lot of interesting titles and stories. It's called everydayfeminism.com. And it comes obviously from the feminist perspective. So there's some of that stuff.
How many days does it come from the feminist perspective?
How many days?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
It's called Everyday Feminism. Man, come on. Don't make me work.
I mean, that's your job. Well, I mean,
Right, go ahead.
you work 2 hours a day. It's fine. At third hours, it might be a little asking a little too much from you. All right. So the title of this article is "Don't Believe in Christian Privilege? These 15 examples will leave you no doubt." This was written on January 17, 2016. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to go through some of these and compare. According to them in 2016, this is what Christian privilege is. What does that
sitting
look
on
like
this story
today?
for 10 years?
I've been waiting.
Have you been waiting 10 years to have your shot? And we said,
At
okay,
Everyday
Edgar,
Feminist.
you come up with the story. He's so mad about this. He's been sitting on. So privilege, just for those of us who are more antiquarian.
Can I give you their definition?
Yeah, go ahead. That sounds good.
Christian privilege is a set of advantages that benefit Christians, but not people who practice other religions or no religion at all.
You mean like going to... Sorry. I'm not going to finish that sentence. Although eternal life is one of the big advantages of Christianity.
That is a pretty big benefit if you make it, if you finish the race.
God's promise to us of eternal life. Yeah, that's a pretty good deal. It's not like we think nobody else gets it, but I'd rather be with Jesus than not.
Would you rather have your kids get privileges in life, or would you rather have them not have privileges in life? Like, would you throw like a stumbling block if your kid was winning a race? Would you throw a bola rope out to trip him?
Is that a privilege?
No. Like this.
No, but
That's why none of my kids went to the Olympics. They were amazingly fast, but I knocked them down.
But that's the American way, right? Is that you want the next generation to do better than the one before.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that gets labeled pejoratively as privilege.
Yeah, that's probably true. I mean,
Right.
having a 2-parent home is privilege in a certain way.
Right.
Yeah, well, we should probably give every kid that privilege. But I'm sorry, but the whole idea of privilege just strikes me as this is just manufactured resentment. It's just resentment. That's all it is.
I think
Want
that's
to
exactly
resent
what it
other
is.
people. Although maybe that's because people, many people look at me and think I'm a white male when they see me. That's what they think.
That's true. I will say this.
They'll go, you just call it resentment because you have all this privilege.
They're definitely targeting.
Oh, go ahead.
They're definitely targeting American Christians because they go on and say that means that American Christians, even those who aren't particularly religious, can openly express their faith, while people affiliated with other religions or no religion are othered and marginalized for practicing theirs. So even those who are, Isn't it a weird definition?
It's weird to say marginalized when it's there's nothing wrong with being at the margin of society. If especially if that's what you chose. Like if you choose
That's an ability for victimhood though.
No, but you're not a
According
victim
to them.
because you're at the margin. Like, so let's say somebody comes to the United States and their religion, they're an immigrant here, and their religion is Odin worship. Okay, you're going to be at the margins of the United States. The only way to not be at the margin is either we all convert to Odin worship, or you convert to something that's more. So, margin or not margin is an irrelevant category. It's utterly irrelevant category. Because if we say we don't want you to be at the margin, that means we want you to give up your beliefs, or we want us to give up our beliefs. Like which? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like it's if you many people actively choose to be at the margin. Are we supposed to tell them no, you can't do that? Because that's making us look bad.
Well, we all have to be a monolith of believing exactly what they want, what they believe.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of transgressive acts are people want to live not the normie so-called lifestyle, but
Yeah, but
And they put
yeah.
themselves there
correct.
intentionally.
Right,
yeah,
right,
Yeah, but if you put
we're on
yourself
the margins.
but you put
Yeah.
yourself on the margin.
Yeah.
That's not the people that are in the middle of the road's problem. You chose it. Now, some people are certainly marginalized, like the lepers in the gospel. That's a kind of marginalization that is dehumanizing. But not all marginalization is dehumanizing. I'm at the margin. I am a pro-life Catholic. Well, there's a lot of situations that puts me way at the margin of. There's a lot of social situations. There's a lot of social situations that puts me right in the middle of. So I'm not going to, what would be the point of me going, oh, they're really marginalizing me as a pro-life Catholic? I'm choosing it. That's what I choose.
Yeah.
All right, sorry, go ahead.
So they ask, does having privilege mean Christians are bad people? And they say, if you're a Christian, you might be skeptical about the idea of having privilege. And there's a reason for that. When you're used to being treated as normal, it's easy to forget that the normalization of one group comes at the cost of people who don't fit the norm.
What is this supposed to be, some kind of insight or something?
It is, apparently.
Society is made up of in-groups and out-groups. The whole point of Christianity was that Jesus came along. Maybe that's what they're trying to do, is hold us to our own standards. Maybe if that's what they're doing, good. We should be held to our own standards.
and to that point, I can't imagine that this writer has spent much time outside of Christendom, because if you go to the places that don't have Christianity and they don't swim in it like we do, where you can't even tell, you're like a fish where you're like, what's water? You go to some of these places and you see what real marginalization looks like. You go to India and you see what the untouchable people are, where they're allowed to die in the streets.
Well,
that is at the margins.
Maybe that's a distinction. That's what I think you gave me the key to what I was trying to. There's being at the margin, and then there's being dehumanized, because having a dehumanized margin, and those are two different things. Like Michelangelo, he's at the margin because or maybe Vincent van Gogh would be a better, because people are more familiar with his life story. But nobody dehumanized Vincent van Gogh and sent him to the margin. He's at the margin because that's where some people live.
But that margin is on top, and we don't care about those people.
Well, it wasn't for Vincent. It wasn't for Vincent van Gogh.
As an artist, or what do you mean?
Because he was very poor. He was. People didn't love his art because at the time it was seen as odd. It is still seen as odd. I mean, he's a very unusual person with very unusual art. But it's not. Nobody dehumanized. Like, I just don't understand the idea of marginalization as a negative, or margin, or being marginalized, or at the margin as a negative thing, unless you're also saying, and people chose to dehumanize. Like, for example, you're a Dalit, you're born untouchable. Well, that's dehumanizing. If we go, like in the United States, if we said gay people should be, excluded or killed, or that would be dehumanizing. I agree with that. Like, that's,
or like fetuses are not babies.
But what am I? Yeah, that's right. You marginalize fetus, but that's dehumanizing marginalization. But if I just go, gay people are not the majority. Oh, marginal. But they they're not saying I don't want to be at the margin, or maybe they are. Maybe some people are, but I think it's a silly term. It's a silly term unless you mean dehumanizing marginalization. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I interrupted you.
no. I think it's just a way to victimize themselves. That's all that's really happening here.
But you're not a victim because you're at the margin.
But they're equating it. That's the problem. If you're on the margin, you are therefore a victim.
You're more likely to be a victim probably if you're on the margin.
But according to them, because you are not part of the main, which is something they don't call it evil, but there's clearly a tone of they despise Christianity. Keep this in mind. This was 10 years ago as well. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think even 10 years ago Christianity was.
Oh, we've been in a kind of decline.
Yeah,
here in America.
Exactly.
Like that. Yeah. So every 10 years you could see that.
So, but I want you guys to listen to some of these, the 15 things that prove, that according to them, prove the Christian privilege, and tell me if that sounds accurate today.
Yeah.
Or if it doesn't sound accurate, who would it be accurate about, or what group would it be accurate about? So I'm going to skip down. I'm going to start with number 2. You can wear symbols of your religion without being stereotyped as dangerous. Can Christians wear symbolism of Christianity without being labeled dangerous?
I'm sorry. The first thing that comes to my mind is in some situations you wear the pride flag and you're the outsider. In some situations you wear the crucifix and you're the outsider. Yeah. I mean, they force those baseball players to wear the pride flag when they don't want to.
And then
nobody forces anybody to wear the crucifix.
Exactly. And the guy who wrote Genesis on his baseball cap, all that flack that he caught for having a trying to turn that into a religious symbol.
Right.
He was called out for that. He was stereotyped as dangerous. Yeah, exactly. That's exactly my point. And they go to explain, for people like Muslims and Sikhs, wearing symbols of their faith comes at the risk of harassment and abuse.
Yeah, that's probably true. I don't doubt that. I mean, a Sikh, for example, is an outsider. They literally just don't dress like other people. Yeah. I don't think they want to stop being Sikhs, but I do think there's a dignified marginalization where we go, clearly you're over here at the margin of society, but we should have a society where everyone agrees. That doesn't mean you take any flack from anybody. It doesn't mean you're disadvantaged in any way. Yeah. But being at the margin is where the Sikh person chooses to be. They came to America if they're an immigrant, or they remained in America if they're not as a Sikh. There's nothing wrong with being in the minority. They're treating minority status like it's bad. Most of us are in the minority about something.
Yeah.
But I do agree. Like, I think people are mean to Sikhs.
Yeah.
I think people are mean to Sikhs mostly because they think they're Muslims, and we're habitually mean to Muslims in many places.
I think this person is blinded by the fact that, well, of course, this is everyday feminism. Therefore, it stands for a whole slew of things, which is mainly secularism, and it feels like they're seeing it as, the poor Sikhs and the poor Muslims that are being targeted by Christians, but they don't see it as, well, hold on a second. Right now, and at least in 2026, secularism is the predominant quote-unquote religion.
That's the thing. Yeah. Secular is the dominant religion.
So any form of religious expression, if it doesn't affirm secularism, or if it's going to be called out. But I mean,
it's like if you're like that girl at Berkeley who was on the welcome team for freshman orientation, and she's wearing her crucifix. And the dean says, you're representing the university, you need to take that off.
Yeah.
That's completely illegal for the dean to say that. Yeah. Like, that's 100% illegal. But secular people are so convinced that secularism is the default position for everybody. Yep. We start with self, and then sometimes we put up with you.
Yeah.
I'm not a secular person. I'm a Catholic person. I wear the crucifix. Go away, Dean, which this girl did say.
Good for her.
And then I think she sued him. Because that is the most blatant othering the person who has a religious symbol. So don't tell me that Christians are meaner than secular people about this. Yeah. Maybe we are.
I have a theory on why this is the case. And I was an education minor in college, so if you'll stick with me for a minute.
You just wanted to get in that you went to college. Yeah. He's always trying to brag about his.
I'm about to talk about philosophers too, so let me step it up a notch here.
All right, go ahead.
No. Jean-Jacques Rousseau. You remember that name?
Yeah.
Philosopher that he believed that
Emile.
Human. What?
He wrote the book Emile.
Okay.
I think that was Rousseau.
I
No,
didn't
I'm
get
probably
to get
wrong
into my
about
Google
that.
search.
Go ahead and correct me.
He may have. But he said that human beings are basically good, and he was around the time of Voltaire. So a lot of people have really ingested that, and that was sort of the vibe that I felt like I got in college. It's like people are basically good, and it's structures that are bad, right? And what do the structures do? They separate by power, and then of course Marx went on to the power dynamics are everything. It's not about truth, true yes or no. It's about power dynamics. But Jean-Jacques Rousseau abandoned his 5 children to the French hospital at a time when that basically meant that they'd die. Oof. All 5 of his infant children, one at a time with his
Did he really
paramour. Yes. Yeah. So it's like one of these things of beware where your philosophy is from. So the modern mind, which I don't think that most people really want a bad society or that these awful, evil people, but they've kind of ingested the sense of the normal secular thing that we live in, which is a vestige of Christianity and Christendom, right?
Right.
Which does not exist in lots of parts of the world that have not had Christianity for either hundreds of years or never. And so they live in this sort of milieu of like, well, as long as we make sure that they have their Maslow's hierarchy of needs met, where it's like food, water, sustenance, and then shelter and love at the end, then people are going to have a fine, cheerful society. And it's the cranky Christians who get in the way.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I think that's a very good point because, first of all, I mean, Rousseau's idea that the human being is generous and good and only learns these evil things comes from a person who has not spent very much time around 2-year-olds. I mean, they're not generous and good.
As I told you, there's a reason for that.
There's literally nobody more selfish than a 2-year-old. So it's just the most foolish idea. Although we as Christians, of course, do believe people are, in essence, good, but also that we have a fallen nature. But that if Christianity wouldn't come with all these rules, what happens is heartbreak every time for me and when I was young, it was the hippies, and the hippies were going to fix all of this. Well, the hippies either died of a drug overdose or ended up becoming ministers at Calvary Chapel because hippie life doesn't make any sense without something higher.
Or became yuppies.
Or they became yuppies. Yeah. Like what was his name? The guy that started the Yuppies. Now I can't remember his name, but who was a hippie and then became a yuppie. And I think you're right on something there. That there is an underlying idea that it's you religious people or you Christian people, most of all, who introduce these categories that make everybody miserable. Whereas it's like Christians are like, we're trying to teach our children to love one another and be respectful. Mm-hmm. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Our bad.
Would you like to hear another one?
Yeah.
Your community can build and attend a place of worship without being targeted for violence.
Yeah. Tell the Canadian Christians that.
Well, not even Canadian Christians, but even here in the U.S. So I started kind of looking up. I specifically went with violent attacks which resulted in death. How many have occurred in the last 10 years amongst Christian churches? And I compared it to mosques, mainly because in the article it specifically says because of those lies, Islam is an example of a religion whose place of worship are targeted for violence. So they compared it to Islam, to mosques. So I compared it with mosques. In the last 10 years, there have been approximately 150 to 180 violent incidents that resulted in deaths in Christian churches.
Yeah.
There have been 5 at mosques.
Okay.
Within the span of 10 years. Obviously, the main mosque attack that we know, especially here in San Diego, is the one that occurred actually, 2-3 months ago in May? That attack that happened.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
But that's 5 in the last 10 years. That would count as number 5. Compare that to between 150 to 180. So...
Well, I mean, there are a lot more
privilege?
Christians. There are a lot more Christians, but one of the sad things we saw was these trans shooters that were shooting up
Yeah.
Christians. I don't know why. I don't know what that was about, but there seemed to be a trend there for a minute.
Yeah.
If shoot up a Catholic church or shoot up a Christian school
Was
or
that
something.
the
Not for a
this-
minute, unfortunately.
You think it's still going on?
I think it's still going to go
Yeah.
on. Yeah, when you have untreated mental illness,
Yeah, true.
you know.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you can the first question that comes up whenever there's a shooting like that is, what did that person represent, or what was their ideology?
Which team are they on?
Which team are they on exactly?
Oh yeah, that's a sick game we play. That is a sick game. we
And
play.
but it's interesting because it's always the opposite side. Well, one side always kind of moves on. Says, well, that's not really important. The important is that there's violence happening and people are dying, and then the other side really focuses on the who the person is and what they represented and all that. It's a game that both sides play.
What you are making me think though is, like, as a Christian, I feel safe in church. I feel like my church is safe. I mean, I know that there's sometimes after a shooting, you're like, you look around for a while.
But I mean, I think a
But-
lot of churches
but-
and people that have taken the right precautions, and if you're a
Sure.
tight community, you know how to defend each other.
But I don't feel like this person is wrong in saying that is a privilege we have here in the United States. I mean, you think about the Catholic Church in Nicaragua right now, and this person probably loves. I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
but the feminist secularist government of Nicaragua, at least that's what they claim.
Which, funny enough,
Literally jailing nuns and priests and
Well, the
kicking
bishop is
bishops
missing.
out. One bishop missing, one is in Rome, can't go back. And
then you look at what's happening in Nigeria.
Nigeria is horrific, even far beyond Nicaragua. But I was thinking of Nicaragua because Nicaragua is a secular,
Yeah.
communist ideology that's expressly feminist, and they're bullies. That's all they are. Is they're just nasty bullies. And so I do think we have that privilege here. But I look at my fellow Christians in places like, I don't know, North Korea, Nicaragua, Nigeria, I think China. They don't have that privilege. But I think it's fair to point out we do have that, and I think we should be like very thankful to the and which I'm sure that this person would agree with me. We should be thankful to the men and women of the armed forces who defend our freedoms.
I'm not sure that person would agree with you.
I think they would. I think that person, when that person says these are privileges, that person would appreciate that.
Yeah, not sure about that one.
I think they would. I think that person would agree with me.
You are an optimist, and I appreciate it. That's what I appreciate about you.
Yeah, I think it's good to remember too. Once again, if you look around the world and if you find like, which country would you rather grow up in? One that's Christian, one that's maybe Muslim, and there's a wide range of how those go, like very wide. Or maybe a pagan culture where you might end up on the altar of a sacrifice and you're the treat,
Yeah.
Or again, you could be one of the untouchables. I don't remember the word you used for
Oh, the Dalits.
the Dalits. Yeah.
But you know what? That makes me think of, like, everybody loves England at Christmas time. We have the show, Ebenezer Scrooge, and all, like the earmuffs and that's not how England was. England was a brutal, vicious place under paganism, and that went on for 10,000 years. And then Christians showed up, and within 1,000 years of Christians, you got earmuffs and singing Christmas carols and drinking mulled cider. Like, you have to be dumb to miss that point.
I thought you were going to say it was brutal in the 19th century.
That's what I thought you were saying.
When Dickens was writing, I mean, like,
Well, it was, yeah.
it was tough, but it was still better than
Well, there was
1,000 years prior.
because Dickens was writing in those years right after the Industrial Revolution, before you had labor laws, basically, or pollution laws and all of that stuff. But the idea of Merry England, do you think the Romans thought it was Merry England? It was brutal, vicious, violent England. And that's literally, that went on century after century after century. And then within a few centuries, Christianity turned the place into we have a fireside and we sing Christmas carols. Go ahead.
No, I
Sorry.
do you want me to move on to the next one, or
Yes,
are you
please.
good? Okay. People usually don't appropriate or trivialize sacred symbols of your religion. Yeah, people don't trivialize.
No,
or,
Madonna never wears the rosary while she's writhing on the floor. That never happens.
Yeah, I mean, it says these sacred symbols do have deep meanings in the cultures they originate from. Dismissing it as something silly, as a silly thing to use, however you want, says that you don't see these as spiritual practices or worthy of respect. I think they're trying to compare. It sounds like this whole article, all they're trying to do is compare Christians are privileged and all these other religions that are on the margins don't have the ability to. I don't know.
But the whole discussion is framed not as whether they're true or not, but whether one has power and privilege and the other
It's
doesn't.
all about power.
You
That's
know,
all it is about power.
It's so tiresome.
But it does. But I keep going back to it. And I wonder if you two feel the same way. At a root level, as a Christian, this is exactly the question I'm always supposed to be asking myself. Am I loving the other person, or am I treating them as marginalized because they're different from me, or because they worship different, or they live a different lifestyle? Like, this is actually a good question. I don't mind the person asking the question. I just think that the language of privilege and marginalization is just so silly here. Like, say Christians don't love other people as much as they should. I'll be like, you are right. Christians don't behave with the kind of kindness and openness. Yes, that's true. We don't. And we're like, we should be open to you pointing that out to us. That's what Christian conversion is about. But it's using a foreign language that we don't really.
The way I see it is that this whole article is just a secular perspective, just saying Christians are bad. Christian bad. That's all I see.
Yeah, is that what you see?
That's all I see is Christian bad
Man
and what is it? Christian
man bad.
American Christian man bad. That's all I see.
I actually heard a college professor say that a few weeks ago. Basically, it was evangelical Christians bad. White evangelical Christians.
It's the same
bad.
thing as what is it? Cis white man bad.
Yeah.
There probably are bad ones, but the fact is, if you're really
Plenty of us
if,
that are bad.
like I don't know. At least the evangelical Christians that I know, even though evangelical Christians are always like this. They're always like, we need a Christian society. We need a more Christian society. Oh, also the Pope is the whore of Babylon, and we need to be more. Like, I always feel like, wait. You just kind of whizzed by a point there, like. but I think that like the white evangelical Christians, they're trying to be Christians. I mean, I don't know.
Overall thoughts on the article? I feel like you're kind of like yes and no.
That's the way I feel, is yes and no. I feel like that person should learn to speak to Christians in a language that Christians actually understand, and then the points would be great. It'd be like, don't marginalize Sikhs. Oh, like, don't treat Sikhs like foreigners. Like, treat them like your brothers and sisters in Christ. Oh, that's a really good point. I had never thought of that. I'm going to treat the Sikhs better. Like if you would speak to us in our language, we'd probably get it. But that's all jargony.
Since that, sorry, I keep jumping on top of you.
No, I do it to you all the time. I'm so glad when you do it to me. I'm really serious about that.
I mean, somebody needs to do it because I just talks over everybody.
That's right. We're gonna fight in here. Yeah.
Anyway, my
10 years ago.
Sorry, Jeff. My bad. I was just sitting there waiting that whole time to do that. Go ahead.
10 years ago. That's about right when Jordan Peterson started to pop off, right? And I think that there's been a lot of his bringing this kind of awareness of like, hey, there's more at play here. There's a deeper question. Just tossing off these little, this white man, this sort of silliness is not good for us, and we're going in a bad way. But you can't just have like, the sort of angry white guy being like, I don't like feminism, because no one's going to listen to that person. But you listen to a liberal Canadian college professor who's a psychologist who's really smart, who says, yes, I support all the good things about feminism and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, but these are some problems that we're coming across here. And I think he really, turned the discussion around from sort of a badgering longhouse, they say.
I can't do Jordan Peterson impression.
I always feel like
I
Jordan
try
Peterson is. I feel like I should know more about Jordan Peterson. I hear so many people talk about him, and I have not followed his career. Or I saw one interview where I thought he was wonderful. That he handled it very, very well, because the interviewer was attacking him, and
Is this the Sky News with Kathy Newman?
I honestly,
Yeah,
it might have been that.
That's the most famous one. Yeah. I mean,
but I thought, but So what does he do that's so great?
He's
What do we like about?
he basically just tells people to clean their room. To be honest,
I hate this guy. Stupid Jordan Peterson.
No, look.
Get rid of him.
He's not a Christian, or at least I don't know where he stands on Christianity. Because anytime you try to talk to him about religion, he just goes like, "Well, what do you mean by that?" You know, it's like he goes into like a really weird way, and he's done Bible studies and all that nowadays. But he's reached especially young men who are secularized, who feel aimless and are wandering and don't feel like they have a purpose in life, to get their act together and to start doing small things to find purpose in their life.
Does he acknowledge the fact that many of these young men were abandoned as boys by their fathers? That their fathers left them?
I think he does, yeah.
We call that divorce, but what it actually is child abandonment under color of law, where you leave your boy behind. That hurts.
Yeah.
You leave your little girl behind, that hurts. Yeah. You can say, well, it's that mommy and daddy came to... Whatever you say, you hurt them.
You know what it actually struck me the first time I saw that? I was actually in high school, and there was a friend of mine who, her parents... Actually, it was late in high school, so I was a junior or senior. But her parents got a divorce, and I remember watching her crumble. I mean, and this is a teenager. This is late in high school, and her life fell apart for a while, and I didn't understand. I mean, I come from a very tight-knit Mexican family where, parents are still together, and a lot of examples of people who are still married, couples who are still married, my aunts and my uncles. But watching her fall apart and realizing how deeply it affected her, that to me was the first time I saw how deeply horrific divorce is.
Lifetime.
Yeah.
It's a lifetime.
Yeah.
And many people do okay. It's not like a death sentence or something like that. People are resilient. People recover. Not everybody's resilient. Yeah. Not everybody recovers.
And the scars that it leaves.
And so I think, I really honestly, I am not one that's very sympathetic to this whole masculinity movement. What we need is more masculinity. I think we need one thing. We need everybody to be more like Jesus. I think that if we would talk, I get so tired of these priests.
I am sympathetic to the masculinity movement.
Why? Why not just say be like Jesus? Like that. That's the key to life is to be like Jesus.
That's the thing though. I think that's where so there's the men go their own way movement, which is the MGTOW movement, the super Andrew Tate world.
I've heard of Andrew Tate. Yeah.
That world, I of course I don't agree with, but I think they're onto something. It's like where these young men feel like they've been knocked down and their masculinity was treated as an illness or a sickness or something to be ashamed of. And it's the idea of, this rough and tumble masculine side of you needs to be tamed, and you need to be more in touch with your feelings. And that's when you finally become yourself. I only have
two feelings, and one of them is hunger.
So I sympathize with that, and I think there's a lot of people, especially in the Catholic world, what they're trying to do is saying like, look, your masculinity is part of something that God created. Embrace that side of masculinity and make it virtuous. Do something with this.
But that's not what Andrew Tate said.
That's not what Andrew Tate's saying.
No.
But
he needs Jesus. That guy needs Jesus.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's not what Jordan Peterson says either.
Yeah,
Jordan Peterson's on the good side of light, right? But those Tate guys are...
No, I don't doubt that. I've heard a lot of good things about Jordan Peterson. I just haven't followed him. But I just don't understand Christians becoming so devoted to the gospel of masculinity when we have the gospel of Jesus Christ. It heals that gospel heals everything. That person heals everything.
But that's what a lot of boys have heard. So like boys that want to have a club with just boys in it, and then there's a girl who wants to get in, and it's like, why won't you let the girl in? And it's suddenly
they're called the Scouts, okay? Just say it for what it is.
Exactly. Well, no, it's many
right.
such cases,
right?
And it's like, well, why can't you just be Christ-like and welcome her in? It's like, because boys need to be around
Christ
other boys.
Literally chose boys to hang out with. Like I'm being Christ-like. All right.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I mean, he hung out with women too, but like, I see what you're saying.
Yeah,
there's been such a deep offense against their normal being,
and so then there's kind of two responses. One is this kind of cowering, feminized, emasculated man who's loathing inside of his heart, right? And he's just he says the things on the outside that sound correct and everything, but on the inside he's like a Dostoevsky novel. And then there's
This poor guy.
and there's like the He-Man Woman Haters Club, where like we got all the nonsense and like and so the central the via media, right, the way that is with the virtue is to within the light of Christ, within the Christendom, is how to tame that, but also retain that sense of masculinity and enjoyment of being a man. And sometimes you're just around men and the ladies aren't invited. And when you do that, you actually respect women more too. You're not like hating women and stuff. You're showing them great respect.
No, and the women should be glad to be rid of us sometimes. I mean, really, they should. like why?
It's why my wife says, just go on a guy's trip, get out of here.
Yes, she wants you gone. I'm going away this weekend. And my wife said to me in the middle of the week, she goes, I'm glad you're going away. She goes, I need some time. And we're old. We've done this for a long time. I'm like, I get it. I totally get it. I'm looking forward to being in the house without a dude around. Like she's going to go a whole weekend
grunting and scratching
or whatever
his head.
I do. I don't know. But, the thing is like women have, I don't. Maybe they don't anymore. Maybe we've destroyed women's places too. But like the baby shower. When I see men getting invited to the baby shower, I feel like, man, we're doomed. We're doomed.
All right, I'll be
because no women want him there, and he don't want to be there.
I'll be honest. We did.
Tell her to knock it off.
We did the both men and women thing. But this is the thing. I see that thing. It's like, to me, it's just an excuse to eat food and drink beer. Like that's all I want to do is hang out with my friends and drink beer and eat food. And she's like, presents and gifts and look at these little baby outfits. And I'm like, all right, go inside.
Maybe
that.
I should have said the bridal shower.
The bridal shower. Wait a minute. Do dudes get invited to bridal showers?
I hope not.
I certainly hope not either.
But women shouldn't get invited to I don't know where did we get this idea that men and women have to share every physical space together and every activity together. That's a dumb idea.
It's a misapplication of equality, right? Because if one group gets something and the other group gets something else, one group went out for Mexican and the other group went out for Chinese. Well, it's not fair because we didn't get tacos, or it's not fair because there's a hyper fixation on equality.
Equality is being equated to sameness.
Or justice, even, but to a fault, not to a true ideal.
Well, I don't think that men it is. There is a sick kind of masculinity that that treats women as servants or second-class citizens or bad
but we've
drivers
talked about that for 15 years.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, that's my point is like there's just a normal kind of. I just think these guys never had a dad around to show them. Like,
you're right.
Like, this is how you relate with women. It doesn't mean that everything you do is with women. Everything, like, she gets to go out and do her thing. You go do, like, it doesn't have to be that we are completely enmeshed with one another, but you respect her. Yeah. Like there's but I don't think you can get that outside of a mentorship. I don't think you can get that from, you're not going to, and then you get the sick people like Andrew Tate who are truly sick. I mean, it's truly sick stuff. Mm-hmm.
I think if you're worshiping at the altar of masculinity or femininity, you have a problem. It's worshiping at the altar of Jesus.
False god of it.
Yeah. You worship at the altar of Jesus, but you also have to recognize its a rightful place where masculinity fits into your life. Allow it to be an authentic masculinity. I hate saying that because it's such a buzzword and trope, authentic masculinity. Well, what does that even mean?
It means be like Jesus. That's authentic masculinity. I'm sorry, I have a definition of it. I mean, he is the perfect man. So I don't, but I see what you're saying, that there's a wound there and really an insult to masculinity. Like we were talking about earlier, just before we went on the air, that if Marge Simpson and Homer Simpson's personalities were switched, we would see that as the most offensive TV show. It would be unbearably. It wouldn't have lasted a year. But because Marge is what she is and Homer is a complete dope, it can work. Well, that's mean to boys.
Yeah.
That's mean. If not that particular show is like that, I don't care about that. But that show after show after show after commercial after the commercial where the guy is dumb is a funny commercial. The commercial where the girl is dumb, that will end your business. You will be out of business. Like Target can never make a commercial where a lady is dumb, but where the guy doesn't get it, I'm sending.
You just explained
That's
dads on television since what, the 90s?
Yeah. I blame
I
Raymond.
think way before that.
The 80s? You blame what?
Everybody loves Raymond. I feel like that was
my goodness,
almost the.
I don't know, Archie Bunker back in the 70s. It goes pretty far back. Edith was no bright light, but she had a good heart.
I only remember early as the 90s
Because you weren't born before that.
I was born in 89.
But you can never have any hint that the woman is somehow the butt of the joke, but the man can be the butt.
And
of
that's
the joke.
because men are better than that.
Men are better than
Yeah,
women.
what than just like making women the butt of the joke for everything. We're like above that, actually.
Are we? Really?
Well, it depends who you're
I
talking
mean-
to, right?
I don't know.
Just
if
saying,
that's,
it's a gentlemanly thing to do. It seems.
I think it's a cultural habit. I think
Yeah.
it's a cultural habit. There's a lot of cultures where it would be the reverse.
Yeah.
I will say this: that the way men show affection for each other is really interesting. Like just ragging on each other. I just rewatched Band of Brothers. I love that show. It's probably my favorite show ever because it's just there's that sense of brotherhood that they have amongst each other that they got to experience just like the terrors of war together, and it's so interesting. There's a couple of episodes where they're Bastogne, which is like the coldest time when they were there. They're outside and how basically the trees were blowing up over their heads. And what I found funny watching it this time around is how much comedy there was amongst how much misery there was. Mm-hmm. Like their legs were getting blown off. There were, the trauma of the bombs going off. But here they are joking around with each other and just laughing and singing and just bonding with each other and making fun of each other. There's one of the medics goes up to one of the soldiers as Edward, why aren't you keeping your shoes or something dry? He's like, why do you keep calling me by my first name? What are you, like my mom? He's like, just call me babe like everybody else does. It's like
Because that was his nickname?
That was his nickname, yeah.
Yeah.
I've only seen a couple episodes.
I don't know
of
how
it.
we started talking
I need to
about
watch it.
masculinity. But
It's
I
the
don't
Christian
know.
problem. No, I don't know either.
What was our other topic we had? I can't even remember what it was now.
That's jumping.
What a coherent show, isn't it?
Run away!
Well, yeah. Well, apparently men can talk with each other for about 40 minutes, and that's as far as I can.
All
Unless
right.
you're Matt Fradd, who can go like 6 hours, dude. What kind of dude is he? Stuff is not very masculine.
I've used
Still
all my
got
words up
words
for
left?
today. You still have 2 hours to talk.
Yeah,
after
but William's going to do William Albrecht's our guest. He'll do all the
true.
talking. I'll do the being friendly. He can do all the talking.
All right, do you want to wrap it up then?
I don't know. I don't. Yeah, but aren't you going to give us any more privilege? Any ways?
I was
privilege?
going to leave it right there.
Yeah.
There's plenty of them. You can look for it if you want, but
I'm glad you saved that article for 10 years. Like, I'm going to, one of these days, I'm going to get
You
that
really
feminist
think I was-
article. I'm going to get this feminist article on the air. One of these
Yeah, I'm
days.
looking in the
Every
mirror, it's
night
like-
before he goes to bed, he's like unwrapping it. Like, I'll get it on the air.
last year it's
We'll
like
show
one more
those
year.
feminists.
One more year.
All right, we didn't do it this year, article, but next year I'll get you on the air.
Next year's the 10 years.
If what he's saying is Christians are the majority and we should use that majority as a way to treat other people with love and respect, I think he's right.
She's right.
Oh, it's a she? I thought it was a dude that wrote that.
No, it's a
Read me the name. I thought it was a dude. Read me the
Maisha?
Oh, Maisha.
Maisha?
I thought it was Mike. My bad.
Maisha Johnson.
Sorry, Maisha. I apologize. I didn't mean to make you
Well, it's
comparable to
it's
a
your
dopey man.
It's a Christian privilege.
Homer.
What can I say? And that has been your review of Everyday Feminism.
10 years late. Peace. We'll see you for the live show. Bye.